The factory was just behind the office and up a small incline. There was no one outside and only the sound of a slight breeze coming down the hillside. It was a peaceful and bucolic setting. I thought if this factory visit turned into some kind of regular assignment with Bernie, I wouldn't mind. When I got to the plant, I went over to a window and pressed my face against the glass. For a moment, I figured I might have been lost. Was I at the wrong building? I looked through the window again. It seemed to be the right place, but the factory was deserted. Where before there had been around 50 or 60 workers, now there was only an old man with a broom in hand. He spotted me at the window and started toward the front door, as if to let me in, but then he did a rethink, turned, and hurried out a rear door instead. What in the hell is going on? With my forehead near the glass, I glanced down at my watch. It was just past 3. Chinese factories did not have the tradition of an afternoon siesta, and Sister had already mentioned that the factory broke only for lunch and then at dinner time. I heard the sound of heels clicking on the pavement behind me. What at first seemed like not such a bad idea was quickly turning into a situation. I felt guilty all of a sudden, as though caught doing something illicit, putting my nose in where it didn't belong. What excuse could I possibly offer, and how would I address the matter of what I was seeing, or rather what I was not seeing? Out of sheer embarrassment, someone might have to get upset about me wandering off. The sound of fast approaching heels grew louder until it was no longer possible to act like I could not hear them. Clack, 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 clack. I turned around, expecting the worst. Instead of an angry expression, Sister was forcing a smile, one that widened as she approached until it appeared more like a wince. She reached me slightly out of breath. "The workers are resting," she said. It was a conversation stopper, like when someone in America said they were off to run an errand. You weren't meant to ask what kind. The very notion of rest was sacrosanct in China, and then saying something like that to a foreigner gave it an additional weight. Chinese have worked hard for thousands of years. If someone said they needed a breather, no further explanation was necessary. "Let's go back," Sister said, and quietly led the way. Trying to process what had happened, I felt as though I had just been to a magic show and seen a large elephant disappear. Where the workers had gone was a mystery. They were nowhere to be seen, and there was nothing to do but rub my eyes and wonder how, or why, it had been done. How could a factory be in full swing one moment and gone the next? That evening I telephoned Bernie. I was apprehensive. Surely nothing like such a vanishing act ever happened in America, and telling him about it would probably only succeed in making me appear foolish. At the very least, it would make me the bearer of bad news. I decided that I would report on the visit, but only in a general way. There were other details to provide. I would tell him all about the visit, but I would leave out the last part, since I was not supposed to have seen it anyway. "Did they seem busy?" he asked. It was just about the only thing that he was interested in discussing, the general busyness of the place. I decided to tell him about the very end of the trip in detail. He not only believed what happened, but he laughed about it. He had been to the factory himself several weeks earlier and suspected that a similar show had been put on for him as well. He was not at all worried. Quite the opposite. He said that what I was reporting was good news. I told him I didn't understand. What happened earlier that day troubled me, and I thought, any factory that was willing to go to such great lengths to pretend it was busy probably had a few other tricks up its sleeve. Bernie did not see it that way, though. He figured if business was that slow and they were trying that hard, then it would translate into favorable pricing for his company. It was interesting to me how Bernie viewed things differently than I might have. He saw what the factory had done as somewhat flattering. If they were so motivated, he might also benefit from the company's undivided attention, which might also mean better quality. "Tell me, was the warehouse full?" "The warehouse?" Bernie had not specifically asked about the warehouse before my visit, but it had been part of the tour. I told him that I remembered it being rather empty. He asked me to estimate the number of pallets, and I told him that there could not have been more than 50 or so. "Fantastic," he said. "They're desperate for my business."